So we start with our afternoon session and heading back through our agenda to the appendices off to the side, kind of, because you've got an updated version to accompany that. Welcome, Saskia. Nigel. Sorry, we are going to kick off. Saskia, Paul, Paula. And online we have
From Russian.
Have proposed to this about that we don't have online. There's a couple of things we want to talk to you about the government and finance policy. That is starting at phase 157 of the phase plans that come out on Friday. Then we thought it might be beneficial for members just to hear at a high level the feedback we got from audit and risk yesterday. So you're aware of the changes requested. And I think that we thought it's okay with members. Then we will systematically go through the consultation document and take questions as we go. So we're not proposing to have a big scale at the moment, and we're just we go through it step by step. So on that note, if that sounds like a plan, I will hand it over to Tom, who's online.
I think you're still on mute.
Is that right? Can you hear me, team?
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I was getting a message there that I couldn't unmute, but sounds like it's all working. Getting some nods.
Yep.
Yep. Right, so I just wanted to talk through some of the significant changes in the policy. The first one that was highlighted to me, which we haven't actually discussed or disclosed, is the treatment of your three waters and the moving to a CCO. So the approach we've taken is we've actually included your full 10-year LTP budgets for three waters. So we haven't considered or evaluated the fact they're transferring out potentially in year 3. So that's a disclosure we should have in there. With regard to the charges for three waters, obviously we have highlighted the big uplift previously. It's actually come out slightly lower than we've indicated in our last workshop. But there is some further review we'd like to do on the treatment of your reserve balances or debt balances and some growth apportionments, particularly in Omacare. We've aligned to the assumptions in your LTP, but they only had very low growth apportionments in Omacare, which we'd like to question and review a bit further. So if there's no questions on that, the next significant change obviously is the introduction of the community infrastructure development contribution charge. Again, there's a bit of work still in reviewing the activities we include in that charge. We've currently included your elderly person housing and the airport. It has been questioned whether that is appropriate, whether there's actual additional CapEx to provide for growth in those areas. So we're just reviewing that with the finance team present. And unfortunately, we missed the swimming pool CapEx, so that needs to be brought in. And we're yet to receive your libraries CapEx as well. So there might be a bit of change there in the activities that are considered in that charge. But the big one that's driving the contribution is the Memorial Hall. So we're just working through a review of that with the finance team as well to make sure that it fully reflects the original funding assumptions. There's a few tricky indices things to deal with there with your land sales and use of historic reserves. And we need to make sure we're all aligned in how we're dealing with those. The third key significant change is the introduction of reserve land. So transition from FCs to DCs. And as we've presented in the past, we're proposing a split of the reserve contribution into two components. One being for the improvements of reserve land, so new playgrounds, tracks, trails, etc. And the other bit, the provision of the reserve land itself. And the provision one is the chunky one, and it's been based around a provision of 20 square metres per lot. And what the policy is not very clear on, which we could improve on, is whether it's provided in cash or land. We've sort of left that up to council's discretion, so you can assess whether it's appropriate land that's offered or not. So the final thing is how we apply or assess those two new contributions. And as we've presented in the past, we gave you an option of ward-based charges for community infrastructure versus a district-wide charge. We've included the district-wide charge on your guidance from our last workshop. But I guess now that you see the scale of that, you know, there is winners and losers taking that approach, and whether you're comfortable with this charging that flat rate across the entire district. And then the final piece on how we apply it is, who do we charge? There was changes in the legislation a few years ago where parks and reserves, and particularly in community infrastructure, you could only charge residential development. That's since been redacted, and you can open it up, but generally councils across the country are still only charging residential development. But in our last workshop, you voiced a desire to consider everyone that should contribute, so we've done that, but it does open you up for a little bit more challenge, and it gets quite complicated to justify how much we charge the non-residential development. And your team that applies your policies already started to raise a few alarm bells on the work that might be coming their way to justify that. So those were the key points I was wanting to highlight, and I'm happy to take questions or.
Right. Questions or additional comments?
Tom, no, just on the last point, if you include non-residential, what kind of numbers of rating units are we talking about?
So what we've put in the policy is a differential, we call it, based on gross floor area. So for your non-residential, you'll be assessed on your gross floor area. And I think I haven't got that in front of me, but it was sort of a 0.2 to 0.8, depending on your type of non-residential development per 100 square metres.
So I understand the differential, but in terms of how many non-residential rating units could be involved? Number of rating units.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a breakdown of your rating units in front of me, but it will be a pretty small portion, I would expect. Yeah.
Right. So there's 15,500 rating units, give or take. You'd expect it to be sort of 1,000 or 1,500, that kind of.
That would seem about right, maybe a little bit higher than that, but that sort of ballpark.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about just the demand measures that are talked about?
Yep, and
Yeah. Well, for water and wastewater, how you arrived at the demand per unit?
So you're talking table 4, is it, in the policy?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, table 4, yeah. And the reason I'm asking is that way back in 2012, the information we were given said that we have 22.41 persons per occupied dwelling, annual water demand of 220 cubic meters or 250 litres per day per person, just seems light to me. And then sort of the difference then between that and the wastewater says, well, water demand is 350, 280 goes to waste.
So the logic we used there was we had the water metering data for a previous piece of work we'd done, so we just averaged the residential units on an annual basis, and that's where we got the 350 litres per connection from. And then to get to wastewater, it's a sort of rule of thumb that 80% of that goes to waste. So we've just used that rule of thumb to come at the 280.
Okay. Doesn't intuitively seem right.
Yeah.
The New Zealand standards would say 250 litres per person is
Yeah.
the standard. But as you can see, we've got a higher demand here than what's actually found.
But that's per person, isn't it?
Yes, so nice per, you know.
Yeah, because we've got houses on, you know, like 40 litres a day as a house, and if you said 350 litres per person per day, but this is per housing unit.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems to me, if the average is 2.4 back in 2012, and I'm sure it's going to be at least that today, if not more, it just seems intuitively light.
Mm.
I don't know.
I think maybe the different approach we've taken this time is we've looked solely at the residential use from your water meter data, whereas a lot of that national guidance is total water use divided by total population. So it includes all the non-residential consumption. Whereas here we've narrowed in on the residential.
Per housing unit, and I think we're at 1.9 something for people per
Are we? Yeah,
housing
we've
unit.
dropped.
Yeah. So even at that, you'd be thinking, well, 350 litres per day is not going to be even remotely close.
Why have we got such a massive lift in Cromwell large farms? With Cromwell commercial properties that use all the infrastructure and use all the product are going to 9%, yet 19% Cromwell. In the commercial business in Minitoto, commercial properties are minus 2% rate rise, but if you take a large farm, they've got 19%, and we don't use water, and we don't use swimming pools and libraries. Middle, you use eroding, but what's the discrepancy?
Are
Why
you
is it-
looking at rates, or are you looking at development?
Rates for your development.
Yeah, we're in development contributions.
I mean, they're the same.
Yeah, like I don't have the answers. Just to me, intuitively, I start to look at that and go, just doesn't seem to. And I would have thought you would still bring in the non-residential use because it's still part of the total somewhere along the line. So all that water that goes on to parks or wherever else it was used by non-residential uses, I would have thought would be part of the equation. But
It is part of the equation. This table 4 is just helping you assess that non-residential demand versus a residential development. So if you've got an unusual application, how do you convert a non-residential development to a HUI? And you basically divide their water use by 350.
so do you want to? Are you better to? I guess does the higher usage of water give you a higher development contribution, or is it the other way around? Higher is lower contribution.
Yeah. So if you have a non-residential demand that uses a lot of water, they'll pay more if we have a low residential use here of 350 versus if it was higher.
So what you're telling me is that lows actually results in a better outcome for the non-residential runs.
No, worse outcome, they'll pay more.
Right, but a bigger contribution.
Yeah, bigger contribution. Yeah.
All right, yeah. I know it's complex, and I probably thought I was going down a rabbit hole that I probably wasn't helpful. But just the number, when you look at the number, you go, it doesn't seem right. But I think it's based on data, and that's what you're trying to establish. Then I understand the logic.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to review the water meter data because I do know there's a few issues in there with negative reads and stuff, and then that might be distorting it. So we can have a review of that figure. But
Questions? Any additional questions for Tom? It's a substantial compared to what we currently have, and that's why it's in the consultation document.
It's just to highlight that council that do not well where the full documents are over 300 pages worth, and a lot of numbers in there. We can certainly significant changes to sort of just snap through that. We'll bring them back to you to confirm that was the intention. So it's sounding like you're happy with the direction. So what we'll do from here, we'll work, Tom and kind of something along with, particularly, David, will work just to tidy this policy up. And then we will get the chief executive and the mayor just to have a look at it, just to make sure they are happy with it and it does reflect the intention of this space.
I did review the workshop because it's online, and because that reserves contribution commercial is, as the team have alluded to and what Tom's talked about, it will provoke a discussion with that part of the community. But it does flow from the intent that was expressed in the meeting, that, you know, the development contributions in particular that regard should be across that community. And so it's sort of what's flowed into here is really sort of landed in those discussions.
One thing you could consider with the reserve land contribution is we've proposed a cash equivalent of $500 per metre squared, flat across the district. You might be able to adjust that on a ward basis if you felt like it didn't reflect property values across the district appropriately at that $500.
But I wonder why you go to ward based when you've got a district funded. It doesn't make sense. If we're district funding all of those things, why would you go to a ward based approach for DCs?
You got to choose a low. What is 500 metre squared? What's that based on, Tom?
So it was tricky to find something. I based it on a bit of intel I could find online from real estate firms that present that sort of number, and also QLDC's policy. They stipulate land values and they vary it by community, but they sort of range from 400 up to about 600 or 700 from memory. Yeah.
Just seems to me if we're saying that everybody pays their share, then no matter if you're doing it in somewhere low value, you still pay your share for the bigger picture. Otherwise it goes well against what we did with district funding our rates.
Your land value be different. You just got to make sure the figure you figured too high.
That's a challenge to get right. You still got to pay your share. But when it comes to your rates, there's no differentiation, so there shouldn't be at the development stage. That's my logic. That doesn't mean I'm right.
And it's only one aspect of the contribution as a whole.
The land value would be completely different depending.
Yeah.
And your development cost of development contribution will be different.
But your rates for the lights reserves are going to be the same because they're going to be a
It'll generate discussion.
And that's a good thing because we'll find out if we're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Or what the community think about what we chose.
Relations around rates are the same. Rates are differentiated by value of land.
Yeah. Only some.
The factor is the same when you're talking land value or capital value. But the value of the land determines your share of the height you're paying. So it's not, we do have fixed charges, which certainly agree everybody pays those, but if we're talking the variable charges based on land value or capital value, lower value properties will pay less than high value properties. So just wanted to make that clear.
But unless I'm wrong, things like our reserves maintenance and costs come out of a UAC. I think they're not land value.
Community facilities, well, you will have an option to split that variable or fixed. So, but at the moment it's fixed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's my logic. At the moment it's fixed. Unless we change that, then the rates will be the same whether you live in Oturihua or Cromwell.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for
Yeah.
community facilities.
I think the general statement that it can vary based on land value, so that's, yeah.
And look, perhaps another point to note too, as we think about local water done well and water services entity, given how complex it will be to establish a water services entity, and then for that to get up to sort of warp speed to be functional, it's most likely that councils will continue to raise, collect development contributions and all that sort of stuff on their behalf until they have the ability to do that themselves. So it's quite a good thing that this development contributions policy includes water for foreseeable future, because I do not expect the water services engineer to be able to do that on day one. And so they would default to the council's policy in that regard. So, so at least we've covered that. Some councils previously going into the NTU decided to take water out of their development contribution because it was going into the NTU, and then that didn't happen. So then they had to bring it back in. So I think it's good that it's in here for now. We just might need to make note of that, Tom, in the language, and that's all the sort of stuff that's going to have to be negotiated between councils as we establish, if we establish a water services entity of some description.
At the end of the day, you can only, legally, you can only apply a DC and scheme level. Like you can't charge only care for the road costs on the supply if they're not connected. So even, they'll always be calculated by scheme, regardless of who's running them or how the department votes for anything.
Right. Any additional questions for Tom?
On your list of facilities, you've got two of them in your total. I thought we had three of them, so. Railway station. Already, I've picked a few things today.
So following the conversation, so we've got a regular week just to tidy up the government contributions policy. Thank you for that conversation and confirmation direction we want to keep with that. So Tom and the team will tidy that up. Said earlier, we'll make sure that car's given them a by the mayor to make sure it's happy with it before we put it into the result. So as I said earlier, thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Beneficial for members that don't have the privilege of being on audit risk, just to get a high level overview of the kind of things that audit raised and the consultation document and LPP yesterday, all of which we are going through and addressing. Some of them we've managed to address in the time we have, and others are still on our list. So probably sort of at the highest strategic level, really three things that were printing until we have to get really detail about them. Was around balanced budget, three water budget conversation, and also sort of where we were focusing bridges a bit and what listeners want to see working out. And there's a list of other stuff that I'll through down shortly, but balanced budget.
Thank you, Saskia. I was asked directly the question, is the budget balanced by the chair yesterday? And technically the answer is yes. You will see the graph in the consultation document, financial strategy. The budget is balanced. Practically the answer is no, because we use land sales to effectively top up the reduction in funded depreciation. Debt does not come into being part of the balanced budget, and I think we've talked about that pre-Christmas. So we're showing it's balanced, but it depends on achieving land sales when we said we would do it, or when we said we would do it, to ensure that at least from a technical perspective, the budget is balanced. What that then implies potentially is that the question is, are we going to be using land sales to fund operation costs? And that funded depreciation is both an operation cost and a ways to fund capital. So while we've got debt in there to take up the difference in fund depreciation, we need to make sure that the land sales are used to either repay debt or fund capital projects. So that from a point of view of a balanced budget, yes, technically, no, correct, but that's not an issue. In that we have I think a prudent way forward, given the circumstances that we're going to have in a couple of years' time, which is the Three Waters potentially moving off to a new entity. That's why you made that decision to do the 50% depreciation. That's a prudent way of doing it. If we need to bring the Three Waters back in, not only is that a lot of work for my team to reinstate all that, but some of the decisions that we made around only 50% funding depreciations will need to be reconsidered, because you're now talking about a 10-year plan, not just a 2-year. So we're not at that stage yet.
And if I may, you'd recall that in the annual report of the last financial year, we didn't achieve the balanced budget because we didn't achieve the land sales that we were projecting to achieve. And that was the reason why we went from projecting the balanced budget to not achieving it.
But how far away are the land sales from being done?
Well, the team are actually actively working on that. And so the numbers in here represent our intention that in that first year of the LTP, I think we're hoping to reap anywhere between 8 to 10. We need to pay down some of the debt we've got with regards to the building book.
The proposal in this plan is that the first group of sales, it generates funding to start the main subdivisions in the Bannock that block out there. So we're not calling on debt, so it's going to be self-funding. And as the profits from the next stage 1A, whatever how you want to call it, come in, that starts paying down the debt on the community town hall, but it also funds the next stage. So we're not actually borrowing money to do that subdivision. We have a small piece of land that will be effectively seed funding for the main development as it goes on.
Does the land sales accumulate to interest as well? Or obviously an interest incurred in that process?
In terms of the development or the community hall?
Well, both.
Well, in terms of the community hall, what we're going to do with that is capitalise the interest. So we're not funding that because my understanding is that the council wanted to fund all of the costs associated with building the hall from the land sales. So a way around not actually rating for the interest costs is to capitalise it. So we won't fund that, and that will create a deficit. It will go into capital reserve that over 3 to 5 years will eventually be repaid out of the land sales. So that is giving effect to what the council wanted to happen. In terms of the development, my understanding is that there's land that won't take much initially to subdivide and sell. So there should be minimal finance costs associated with that, and then that will fund the next stages. So we're anticipating that there won't be a lot of interest charged on those on that project. It should
This is talking about industrial land.
yes, the industrial land. Yeah.
Can you tell me what the time period is to repay the whole
The town hall.
debt, which is what?
I'm looking at Lee at the moment.
Brilliant.
It's going to debt. Yeah, I think it's 5 years.
5 years, that's very ambitious. It's because by making it 5 years, you put a lot of constraints on being able to utilise some of the profits from those sales elsewhere, particularly the common wall. So I would question why you would want to try and repay $30 million in 5 years. Because
That's the lead to us for the community.
I'm not on the community board, so.
Council would pass that resolution, so that's reflected in our budget.
I'm just not raising it again. Because effectively what's happened is you're dealing with common wall redevelopment, we just kick that down the pipe. And I can't see the necessity for such a tight repayment program.
There are a couple of factors in relation to that. The first one is our debt capacity. We are planning, if you look at the financial strategy in years 1 and 2, and this is based on 175% limit. We're looking at a credit ratings that may increase that. We're looking at, I think it's 116 million net debt. Now the gross debt will be closer to 140 million, and our cap is 150 million. So
where does the application for the increased borrowing limit 280?
the credit, with you going through a process with Fitch, the credit rating agency, we now, once these numbers are finalised today, we can send that on to Fitch, and they will issue, I guess they'll issue, will be well credit rating within the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So effectively, we're reasonably confident talking about a debt limit raised to 280. But our debt level doesn't really apply to my own.
Well, no, it does apply now because that's the way.
I understand.
That does change things, once the parameters change and getting an increase in credit limit changes that. I guess we then would need to work out, the wings and the house that would happen and the cost associated with that. Because there are costs associated with bringing on more debt. But as Saskia said, the council has resolved to get the land sales to pay the Cromwell Hill, and it seems prudent if we can achieve that 5-year turnaround to clear that project and that debt, and then move on to the next one. Given that Gareth here. There's some work to do in terms of getting the actual program of work set up, so I don't know how long that will take, but it's probably going to be, I'd suggest in the next LTP is when that will be ready to roll. But that's for the team to work through.
So I'm confused, not how to do it. We budgeted for water work today to the extent of whatever it was, $14 million will be in those figures, correct?
In terms of the borrowing.
20.7 in total. And that'll be on the proviso we get the lift of the credit rate, correct? Or we can't handle that now.
No, we can handle that now, and that's budgeted in terms of the stuff that you did this morning, and we're anticipating our debt levels to go by the end of this year to about $88 million. We're currently sitting at 45, and we're anticipating probably about 5 million per month uplift every month until the end of the financial year. That may increase given the projects coming online that you've approved. So we will hit 88 million. Next year, we're looking at going to about 140.
But we haven't approved that spend
No,
yet.
you haven't yet.
We're
No,
budgeting.
no, we're budgeting for it.
So we're borrowing before we approve.
Not for the stuff you just
No.
approved, but for the LTP in general. There's a program of work that we have put together in terms of the budgets that absolutely need council sign-off. And you may turn around and say, no, we're not doing that. And that's part of what today's about. Absolutely, we're not, as I say, this is to get us to a stage that we can take this to the auditors, given that you guys need to decide.
What happens if we say no? To, we'll have legal requirements to tomorrow, to water, or just be to which water? The budget and stuff we're talking about. Do they get debt level up to?
So you're talking about next 2-year program, I guess is what you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
Are you talking about what's in this?
Yeah, but I guess what I'm looking at is, we've signed off spend now, right?
Yeah.
We're now looking down the road to have the debt raise, which you're gonna go in 4 weeks' time, apparently the credit rating to give high debt of, to me, it's down the road, right? Futuristic looking function. I guess in my business mind tells us we don't go down that step as quick, we don't need to raise debt there. And if you haven't got land sales now to pay the debt you're incurring, it's only going to be land sales that are going to say the debt will, someone has to pay the interest on the 178 million. Do we pay interest on our debt? Only when we draw it down.
Only when we draw it down.
We're budgeting, but we'll be budgeting for that in a long-term plan, I guess I'm saying.
We are budgeting for,
We're budgeting for interest on 178 million in 10 years' time.
we're budgeting for interest over the next 2 years that will cap out at close to 150. And then what we propose, what, depending on the decisions that this council makes in terms of who will take over ownership of water, if we retain it in-house, then that debt stays with us. If it goes to another entity, the debt will go with,
But the rate still pays interest.
well, for 2 years, but the debt will follow the asset. So if the Three Waters assets go, then the debt that we borrowed to do the work that you guys have approved today, and that hopefully you approve in year 1 and 2, will go with it. So the new entity will have a debt level, and the new entity will have the responsibility of paying for it and billing, you know, ultimately getting money.
But our borrowing capacity, will go down.
Our debt
Amy,
capacity.
she's gone home. Well, she's gone to work.
Sorry.
No, it's just,
That's feedback.
Oh,
but Paul's right. So you're right. So yes, our debt level will go down and our revenue go down because the revenue that we charge for volumetric charging UAC for water, that will also go to the water services entity. So the revenue and the debt is picked up by the new entity.
Yeah. But CODC minus Three Waters.
Yeah.
Has got less income.
That's absolutely right. So all the ratios will come down.
That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
so if we, for argument's sake, have 100 million that's attached to waters, out of 150, or just for argument's sake, the 100 million goes, the $20 million that of revenue goes with Three Waters, which means our ability to borrow in terms of our debt cap will drop by 175% of 20 million. And that is our reduction, but all of the debt, Three Waters go. So our ability to borrow for other stuff should increase, but it won't be as high as it is now because we've got Three Waters.
I mean, to go back to my original point, I mean, we've got moved to the Cromwell Community Board City here. You had 72 odd million voted the hall and more. The hall's now become a monster and gold up 45.8 million of that. So that councillors turned around and said, right, we'll start with a clean sheet on the mall. But if you don't do something and keep this more time, the mall will still be just sitting as it is now. And the only way to do that is to generate money from endowment land sales. And for me, not be such an aggressive debt retirement program in the hall, give yourself some wriggle room to start doing something in the mall.
I guess that's valid, but the council's not giving us that direction yet.
Yeah, I mean, what's come through the discussions and what's factored into here is that the Cromwell Memorial Hall consideration will now be part of 2027 LTP. There are a few things that we have to get on with in the interim in those first 2 years, but it's, I use the term low hanging fruit, but it's not quite low hanging fruit. But the uplift in any budget for the Cromwell Memorial Town Hall, Cromwell Town Centre. Fucking, let's get it right. We need a new name for the Memorial Hall, but for the Cromwell Town Centre is going to be subject to the 2027 LTP and subsequent funding and tag to endowment land, as you suggest.
Yeah, and that's my point. 227, it's not 225.
That's not the right colour.
And it is endowment land profits we're talking about, locked into, without going down that rabbit hole.
And if we have a windfall and it's huge demand and we move the land quickly and we make a good sum for council, then some of these decisions could be advanced, but you know, we just need a good cash flow coming in.
Could I ask from the council point of view, not an endowment land point of view, what is the status of giving Deer Avenue stage 2 to that?
Well, we can answer that question right now.
So, all earthworks kicks off in about 2 weeks. And for stage 1, target will be, coming out about June, July next year. Yeah, so it takes about 55 weeks to do, civil program for the stage, first stage. So that's the balance budget.
Next, big topic of consideration today, and we will come to very shortly, with you all, is how to treat the future of waters. So we are in a confusing position that we don't have the information we don't need yet, and that there is going to be separate consultation April/May, but we need to reflect in the LTP the budgets for the 9 years. So audit and risk, so we had it as a consultation item number 1, you would have seen in the early draft. Audit and risk, said, let's see if we can make that sort of a bit of a focus on water. And so this is a really important conversation that we're coming to you soon with. The direction we do not know yet from audit as to what we need to put in our LTP to get through the audit. We're fortunate that Waitaki is going through their hot review, which is a bit of a weird name. The hot review is when it goes off to office for the general. That is the final tip to say, yeah, you're good to go, ask for council to go out for consultation. We should hear how Waitaki's gone by tomorrow. So what our intention is that we'll obviously open the floor to have a discussion about the waters with you all. But following audit and risk, we kind of will remove it, taking it out as a consultation item. We're in a bit of a holding pattern until we hear how Waitaki got on the feedback they got from audit, and then through the chief executive and the mayor, we'll be reworking that section. There's also was a question audit risk, sorry, that we haven't quite done yesterday because we think there might be edits on that page. Just wanted to condense the wording down in that section of it, so we have got that on our hit list. Bridges was another recent topic from yesterday, because we know that we are going to do quite a bit of work in that area. We're going to go out and have a conversation with our community and seven LTP about level service. So audit and risk, just wanted us to really make that a bit more prominent, not for this LTP, but that's going to be a big issue coming up in the future. So we will make that in the infrastructure strategy. Audit and risk very keen for us to clearly explain in the document. So we're facing 11.63 average rates increase of the council growth as to what that comprises of and basically the why. So we need to add in a bit of an explanation there. There was a bit of conversation around the full item, and really just want to make it a bit clearer and include quotas at the bottom of the table within the consultation document. So we need to do that, it is on our list. We're going to remove all throughout the document. We've got various points like in the mayor and the city's section. We've got we want to hear your views about water. We're going to, in some couple pages, we'll remove all of that at this stage. Given that we're just indicating we're going to come and ask about views. We will add in a sentence in that draft piece to really reflect that regardless of the future of the water, that the budgets for the next 2 years, the proposed rate increases won't change substantially. I mean, we'll use better words than that because, of course, they will change likely throughout the period of consultation, but there's not going to be a dramatic change because water is staying in for the next 2 years. So the committee felt that this needed to be a bit clearer. We will, once we've got all the information, and this will come probably in March, as we've gone through the water and we're about to bring it back to you As appropriate, we've all put, 5 links throughout, we refer to the rates calculated, et cetera. And we will have a bit of a snippet, description about that. We have picked up quite a few typos, not only in the CD, but in the policy. So staff are going through, tidying all of those up. And one of the ones, the big ones we had noticed through there was the Ranfurly railway station was put in the wrong place, so we have, that up. So that's sort of a high level rundown. I think most of the stuff here, anything that the commission has want to add in the conversation yesterday before we dive into the consultation document and we'll take that today.
Probably only just that it's perhaps not the easiest for the team trying to get answers out of audit as to the direction or a steer or a how do you think we should treat this, which makes it not particularly helpful and quite challenging. So I think it is, it did seem to be generally well accepted at the committee meeting yesterday that getting some feedback on the process that Waitaki has landed with will be helpful in the direction for us. And hopefully the sooner the better. And then, yeah, and I think you've highlighted that page that we're going to have effectively why are our rates going up here. I think will be helpful. There's quite a lot. This is still quite a, not 100 pages, but it's still a substantial document for people who are pressed for time to get their heads around. No doubt some people will want to read all 300 and something odd pages with all the policies and things attached as well. But it's going to be a big job for us to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get through this and have their say. So I don't know, Tracy and Sally and Sarah, did any of you have anything to add?
I did just make a point yesterday, that was actually brought up from one of my community board members that, he just wanted to know, he said, like, we're looking at, reducing levels of service such as the halls, but what are we doing at a council level to, sharpen our pencil, I guess. And I explained to him that we do run a really lean council, but I don't really know how you don't necessarily want to put in the consultation document, but I think it is just something that people need to be aware of, that we do run a tight ship here as well as looking at reducing costs in other areas.
And we thought that might be quite a good statement to pick out in the FAQs, and to have a bit of some reading around that for when you are and you drop into the either for a community. So you get to read the points of that. Yeah, we'll put that, that's not going to be changed in here, but we'll get to know that because very good like that therefore. Okay, so if it's okay, what we thought we might do is systematically go page to page. There might be stuff that we just look through, there might be as we get to obviously the different stuff that happens. There's a bit of conversation. I might have to lean on my team colleagues here to answer questions about. So for the first stuff on the first page there, standard page is just the method. We do have edits to make on that. There was thank you, Lee. Development contributions are also increasing slightly. I think in light of our conversation with Tom, we might just reread that sentence.
Well, I think you use word like saying significantly to acknowledge the increase in costs and simple growth and what's related. You know, it's not. And when did we last review this in terms of these numbers? What, 5 years ago?
Not just the numbers, what we're applying.
Yeah, what we're applying them to as well. Yeah, it's a different world. The world has changed immensely since we last did that.
So we will change that to reflect the what we get to see in front of us. So there's a few little edits there. Anything on the and CDs part?
If we just talk about tighten up that water statement in there, and I think with water too, as what Bruce alluded to, that is that regardless of what audits say, the first 2 years of our water spend is actually locked in this. That won't change. It is the first 2 years. It's the years beyond where audit might have an issue, but the first 2 years, year 1 and year 2, are accurate at this point in time anyway. For us to carry through.
Sorry about that. So the pages 4 and 5 is up in front of you. Summary of sort of the big things that we have achieved over the lifelong events. Quite nice to see it all listed that we have delivered on our commitments, to the community, any comments on pages 4 and 5? Okay, so then we provided paper 6, 7, all I know about the beginning really is, gone through and give us a summary of, LPPs of LPP advance. We got it down to 12 key points and also explains the community rights on a 10-year plan, because I think it's the thing, 10-year plan. Any feedback on those 2 pages? Okay, so the next one was quite a significant change. This was in the previous draft, we saw a significant concentration with 1, and you would have seen that we had a little options BBC box. So following feedback I said today, we have taken it out of the consultation item because we're not consulting on it yet. We're going to see if this will pass the muster with what we find out from our techie. At this stage, if we know more, is again further conversation on water. So that would be one that once we get a good steer, that will come back by the CEO and mayor and deliver up to the mayor. If it's major, maybe that maintaining support should maybe more work. Fully engage with you, just to make sure you're comfortable with it.
Do you think we should say future water rather than focus on water? And then I just point people in the direction of we're talking about what's going to happen with water.
We can finish, but our councillors can be future water. Thank you.
All I'd add, not that to words, but just re-emphasise that last paragraph, the engagement, the consultation that will happen will across the 4 communities, if all those participating councils agree, will be quite a significant consultation and the submission process and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be a full-on LTP, albeit it'll just be focused on water services. And so that is planned to occur in the April, May timeframe. And then deliberations and normal decision makings.
I think it would just be really important to make sure that our communities know that it's almost like 2 bites. They get 2 bites of this. They get the LTP now, and then they get the water coming later. And we really need to encourage our communities to actively participate in both parts.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge in that game that we talked about yesterday at the audit and risk, is that the local water done well and the long-term plan timelines don't line up. And that makes it incredibly difficult for us to have the detail to go out to the community with it all rolled into one.
But effectively, they can't change anything because of the set regulation and we don't know the entity we've got till we've got. You can consult as much until we know what we're dealing with. We don't really know.
And then it's semantics, but if you take future from water, because it's the least of doubt, like it's the whereas the one question. And it's like, the water was, I just, you know, that won't, it just feel like we're pulling out, we know we're committed, should we know something? Yeah. We take negligence council.
Like everything water.
Or just
Feels like we're always focusing on water.
Forget water.
Yeah. Water services.
I've just put water.
Yeah.
Just put water, the
Yeah.
big block capitals, water.
Just put it in the same colour as many
Just
as
going to put water with the Band-Aid over.
No, they never find it.
Yeah, just water.
Okay, so water on that basically is,
Thank you.
It is an ideal when we need to upload all of this as report on Friday, anyway, we're 4 minutes in. Those times pretty self-explanatory. Right, our third substantive, application item, voting payment, charges. We're now on page 10. Comments, questions, feedback.
Go now.
Oh, well, you've seen the email that I sent yesterday. I think we've got ourselves in a situation where when we first of all put in place a volumetric charging scheme, it was based on using the electricity model as a base uniform charge, which is basically charge being connected to the scheme. The volumetric charge reflecting the cost of producing water. And for whatever reason, we as a council haven't updated that as we should have done. The 2012 paper we considered said by now it should be in excess of $1.20 a metre based on what we said back then. We've never done it. So I think we're going through a process by saying there's a very small percentage using most of the water and we're going to hit them. We're going to change a system that was designed to be equitable and fair across everybody to be totally unequitable and fair. I'm not saying it's not now because of the way that in theory the people that use less are subsidising more, subsidising the higher users. But if we think for a moment that we're going to drive down demand from the bigger water users by putting up the price, isn't there a risk that we're going to then reduce the amount of income we get and they're not going to afford to pay for the water we're producing? And when you look at the examples in the spreadsheet of how I calculated the costs, you know, taking someone who's using just under the 700, you know, status quo will give a 6% increase this year. The $1.80 will give a 45% increase, and $2.40 will give a 76% increase. If you then look at someone who used a cubic metre a day, which I just plucked as being a number, the status quo would give a 7% increase, $1.80 would give 17%, and $2.40 would give 36%. If but nothing else, I would have thought those percentages should be consistent. Otherwise, all we're doing is replacing one unfair and unequitable system with another. And I just don't get it. There needs to be a better connection, and got to make sure we don't, when we put this in place in the first place, make sure that we didn't get a situation where what we got for volumetric charging wasn't enough to pay the fixed costs of operating the scheme. So I'm not convinced. I haven't seen any information that tells me that that's what we're going to achieve. And when those percentages are all over the place, I'm just not convinced that they're the right numbers. I'm not saying for a minute they shouldn't change, but I think we've got the mix wrong, in my view.
Julie, do you want to comment on that?
Inevitably, however you choose to allocate the costs, some others. So there's no perfect way to allocate the costs. The costs are not being split up based on this component funded, this component funded method. There's no legal requirement to do that. There are councils in New Zealand who only fund the through the federalist supplies rather than the charge. They have a fixed charge, which the fact that volumetric charge is largely around influencing behaviour to encourage people to be more responsible around water consumption. What we know is that lower fixed charges and higher volumetric charges tend to be a benefit for lower income households, and we get a lot of people and us don't pay that, and what people are registering rates and business. And the cost of laws going up, and it's probably going to continue to go up sometime as these projects happen. A large reason why we have that issue, an issue around consumption of water, it's not around the water that's there for us to take, or even what we put through the plan is the reticulation network itself, its ability to Alexander applied with this a lot of growth happening. So there's the hydraulic modelling we're doing is indicating that there's a lot of work required to increase the capacity within the network if we continue to use the kinds of volumes of water that are currently being used. And so as part of the process of trying to level out the capital program, because you'll recall that initially when I came here, I had around $400 million capital program for 10 years that I subsequently scaled back to about $275 million without inflation being applied to it. That has occurred because I pushed the growth projects out to the second half of the 10-year period from early years. So we don't get a huge outlay, but CapEx occurring across the next 3 to 4 years. So that's a key driver for trying to change behaviour, because if we don't drop the consumption quickly, we're going to start having problems with supply to some of the new developments around. And it won't even just be to the new houses. When we connect the new houses up, the existing houses are going to result in pressure reduction occurring. So it's that CapEx program that's truly driving the need for reduction, not not the operational system.
So I get that, but what about for those people that can't reduce the volume of water they're using? They are legitimately high users of water. And we've connected them to a reticular scheme. All we're doing here is potentially penalising them for illegitimate use. And they're paying a disproportionate cost towards that use to maintain what they've already got.
If they're using it to pay for it, and they can afford to pay for it, then
So we're happy just to have a take one unfair and unequitable scheme and replace it with another one. That's all we're doing.
well,
It's the same thing as power, though, isn't it? If you're a high power user,
You pay more.
You pay more.
Yeah, but the volumetric rate is the same for everybody, and you are still encouraged to use less because of that. But when you turn around and say we all of a sudden can just drop and almost 60% of the current uniform annual charge, and that's the clear intention, as we state, is to try and get those 8% down to use less water. And what if they can't? You're just simply making sure that they subsidise the people that use less.
whether the idea is that they're not subsidising the people that use less, and I guess the argument at the moment is that your $600 a month power bill is the incentive to reduce your power, and if you're getting a $45 a 6 monthly water bill, there's not a lot of incentive to reduce your water use.
Yeah, but we are, because we've said in this document that it means people using less are paying more than their share. And I haven't seen anything in the calculations that support that. Just seen some wild increases of 45% or 76% for those people that are close to the 700 metres.
If you had a system where there was no fixed charge, and you just charged on volume, which say you said some councils do, then there's no argument really.
Well, it's not then, no, but there's a real risk that you don't get it. They reduce their income.
The volumetric charges produce sufficient income.
Yeah.
And the more successful you are in inhibiting use, the less money you've got.
Yep. And income might not be your fixed
And what
cost.
Julie's saying is that there's a second problem with it. There are growth areas where, unless we try and inhibit use, we risk lowering the service for everyone.
Look, I think one of the problems in the options that we give, and it's very difficult for us to model these costs, is that the state's quote 60 cents ends up with $700.
$829.
$829.60.
It's not truly reflective of what it would be if we were to bring forward that capital expenditure. It would be different to $806, which would be paying $500 from the outset. So with the 806 also is based on what people are used in water last year. It's going to be used to calculate it. The ones where they've got the increase on, they actually had a 30% reduction in the quantity of water paid for applied to it. So that's where you're going to see about the same reduction, because we're assuming that 30% is more than what is used. Now, to point, it's going to be hard for a person who uses 275 cubic metres a year to reduce their consumption by 30%, because they're all really using quite a small amount. Whereas what we anticipate is higher water users, and we have some very, very high water users who could reduce their consumption by a lot more than 30%. So overall, we'll come down by 30%, but it won't be everybody that reduces by 30% anyway.
So all this costs are met at connection point.
Yes, but you know,
We
we
understand those.
conversations with internally around the fact that might be an irrigation supply that's being run off town supply, where it's from a water supply perspective, that's really an efficient way to use water. But it doesn't stack up financially or it doesn't stack up economically to transfer that connection over to a boiler, because they're getting water so cheap from council that it's why would we keep doing it?
I think there's a sweet spot where we highlight to our community that at the moment we're paying a lot of money to treat water that is then poured on the ground. And that's not an efficient use of the water that we have. And we're considering we're technically a desert here, We don't conserve water like other places.
But we've enabled that by allowing section sizes to vary.
Yeah.
So that we have got 4,000 square metre sections that are on reticulated supplies using treated water. So we've enabled it. And what we've got wrong in the past is we haven't updated that 60 cents today. And all I can see is that we're saying we're going to increase it by 600% to $2.40, drop the uniform charge and hit those using more for legitimate reasons. It's no less legitimate than what someone's using in their pensioner college.
Well, and they might be legitimate reasons and they might not be. It's for each individual who can afford to pay the water bill or not as to what they determine a legitimate reason for their water usage.
You've done that by changing the uniform annual charge by almost halving it. There's nothing fair and equitable about that. And that's the bit we're missing.
Except for those people who are already low water users and on really low incomes and have told us time and again at this table that they cannot afford the rates increases that we are putting on them.
As part of the background information that we've provided regarding this, we did a search on what other councils that do voluntary charge and free charge. And what it's shown is that the dollar rate is at the low end across New Zealand, like we're the layer, same with everybody else, and up over it's like around the $3.50 mark, was it? So hence that's where the, the $2.40 kind of came in, we're still more slowing than the dollar rate that they just picked numbers that were more aligned with what we're seeing.
I've had my say. See what people.
Well, it's going in the consultation document. We agree that this is what it's going in as, and then the people will have their opportunity to pass comment on where they think those costs should lie and how they're apportioned to fixed charge versus volumetric.
Well, I don't think anybody's adverse to that. We've got that already. It's just the shift that we're making. And I'm not saying for a minute that 60 cents is right, because it's certainly not. It's our own flipping fault. We should have changed it. We were supposed to change it. What we said in 2012 was we're going to change it. Should be in excess of $2. Should be based on that back in 2012. It should be in excess of $1.20 back in 2020, 21. It's not. We've cocked it up. And I just think we're now making a knee-jerk reaction. It's gone the other way.
Saskia, is this, we looking at the actual document to go out?
Yes, exactly. Yes, this is, the pending conversation as it is. This is going to work. Audit will really make changes. So essentially today is the conversation and feedback on the policies that we've attached to the we hopefully will get your approval pending changes to final changes by then to give this to audit. Audit will do their thing. We then will come back to you on the 17th of March with the final consultation document and seek your approval to go up.
I mean, the reason I asked is when I look at your options are 240 per cubic metre with a fixed charge of 452. I would have a sentence in there that says a drop of 300 and whatever dollars in your fixed charge. I mean,
We do have that.
I know, that's point C, not point. Well, if I want to sell that, I want you got to say 300 and something dollars on the fixed charge, and the bid proposal is going up to 240 litres per cubic metre, and I'd have that in the same sentence.
I think that becomes too big in the option box. It is in that bottom paragraph. Charges.
If you want me to sell it.
Always do like a little pop-out box. Or folder, something just to highlight it. And also, rather than put in the options, we could do a little pop-out here. And just in relation to what Judy said, we do probably need to add in a sentence about the one main reason being about the consumption and capital working programs, kind of rationale of this. So you would add
because if we don't do this, we risk the shortages through the existing system.
And look, I think, particularly in the data, when I presented to you initially, I talked about making a 20% reduction to just a 20% reduction. And that we've actually getting more conservative and we've gone with a 30% reduction, just in case we don't get the revenue coming in that we need, which is basically. It might be that we don't get 30%, but we actually, there's a number of members that are doing it at the moment, which will improve. We receive in the reading and the billing as well. A number of connections that can see as well. So if we find after year one that it is, we haven't got 30% of it that will solve more water, we're building more water than we were anticipating to build for the year two. We can, the UAC would be adjusted down.
I'm kind of trying to sell this program. We said our preferred option. I want those two figures, 100%. And it costs you this much more for you rid of it. By the way, you're saving $330 on your rates.
So what's the
If
real
you've got a small
component
section.
of UAC?
Thank you very much. If you've got a small section.
How do you work that? Is there a rural component to
I
that?
don't know.
No.
So,
Only connection.
those numbers are real.
I understand.
That's just in for the land.
So looking at our capital program, if one of the issues is the volume of water we're using across the whole district, then surely we need to start looking at saying we need to restrict supply to some places. So if you've got a big section, you don't get all the water. You know, there's other tools that we're not missing out on here, but we're just almost being punitive on the bigger sections.
So to council, Shannon asked or applying for their resource consent because they have big blocks and they are on the town supply. We actually did a look at how many big blocks there are that have got through. There's a lot of properties, I think, and from memory, and I need to check this, so I'm in the media on it, but there was about 1,000 properties that were over 1,000 cubic metres. There was a lot of properties over 1,000 square metres. So kind of we were looking at thinking, horses bolting us. How do you come along now and say, you people can do it? And the issue too, one of the big areas we have had challenges out in that Tyson area and in the low river area, getting the water out there, that part of the network's under pressure and the band network's under pressure, the Rippendale area is under pressure. So they've already got a lot of properties that are large sections that we can't go back and respectively put a restriction on them. If we put a restriction on them, they'll get 1 to 1.5 cubic metres a day. They're going to go down to 350.
So I'm late for this, but Rangeley was one of the first to put water meters in. And it's caused an absolute uproar. So one of the codes in the community board had there was an annual charge. And the average household uses those days about 840 litres or something like that, under a cubic metre. Well, you did those, just come on to a short that, take the figure. And I at the time there was such uproar reading that anything over the unit that the household uses on an average got charged a different rate.
Yes.
Haven't got the technology to basically say you get 1 cubic metre or 1.6 cubic metres for household use. Anything above that, you get $16 a cubic metre. Well, that's not an irrigation. You pay for volumetric charge and what do you put through your pivot? What's the difference?
It's user paid is exactly what we're proposing here. I don't know, I agree with Dean about it. The pure model is there's no fixed charge. You use a cubic metre of water, you pay whatever it costs. Whatever. If you go to a fixed charge to try and make sure we protect our income and then if it's $2.40, you choose whether to use the water or not. If you use it, you pay for it. But you don't pay more. Most
I'm saying over a point, but then you're penalising the household.
How?
So the irrigator does a big large section, and give $2.40, it's the cheapest water you can put on.
So,
What I'm saying.
I don't, we've considered all of that. And there's the complexities to what we're proposing to do. So, like for a start, how frequently do we measure? Currently, we measure twice a year, we're going to 3 times a year. So if people don't use much in the winter, but then use 3 times as much in the summer, it doesn't, you average that out across the year, it doesn't actually help us much because our challenge is peak water use.
Yeah.
It's the days that people are using the peak, and we can't say, because like electricity industry, they have mechanisms, they can do kind of a peak loading charge, haven't they? We don't have that because we don't have each section, property, connection on sort of, if you had smart meters in, you might see the point that you could do that, but we're a long way away from that. And it costs to get to that point.
Where agriculture runs low tech for you.
Yeah.
I guess as Neil said, it should have been raised a long time ago. Now's our opportunity to go. Has anybody got a problem with it going out as this? Feedback? No.
Okay, so next item is community calls and facilities, as we mentioned, board of this committee will vote on, the next page, they'd like to see totals, that's on page 15, and we have made an error under that, likely is very, doing for the wall, so that can go change that. So, feedback on these pages.
Swap one hot topic for another.
Maybe as it currently is, to go for the
Happy, move on.
So it goes to consultation after this process, we're going to take that consultation with all these things.
Yes, exactly,
So
so.
this got to be amended to show what we have got there when it goes to print.
Yes.
That'll come back to us at the next meeting
Yeah.
before it goes to the public.
So
So you'll be able to check that that box is the right colour.
We've got special meeting, just the time frame, to come to a special meeting in mid-March. That you all will see this, all of you in this final.
And by the time you get to the mid-March, we'll have built the frequent units, we can put that around this, everything like we start from it's quite high level, and the detail will wrap around it.
Okay, next item, page.
Martin.
Sorry, I want to run quick comment. So I'm just picking up on this again. I'm pleased to see in the two paragraphs talking about what investment means. It's good property first through community groups. Really, the FAQs, will that give you the opportunity to sort of highlight that?
So, like, this is such a complex.
Yeah, this is what it's, yeah.
That every bill is listed here as its own story, so we do have that story to go back. This company's on Thursday, this brings that over.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the prime example of like the last years. I mean, I know before this, there's a real interest in picking that up. And I think that's the story really of life, was getting off our books, when I say that, and putting, and then, you know, just move it like that and run it. And run it, that's like children, we have that.
Spelling out the differences.
Yeah.
For each one of the like, yeah.
Right now, this month, the property team, we that we are aware of, and we just need information we don't know about those facilities that they can fill us in, then we'll build that information required. That's right. And then I have some ideas on how they would like us to be here, we would like to be that.
I mean, there was an appetite out there. And the support for this proposal. And it's critical that that's how we say, so that's fine.
Thank you. Sorry, I realised we wasted the page numbers here, but to make it easier than that, we could go out consultation. The rock, we've got the application thing, Richmond, the comments, written, removals, and we all think we would reckon, you know, what's right.
Happy novel.
Ecstatic.
Ecstatic, that's
Okay, but the next one, like, Devon, station item number 4 is the outside that was full.
Already causing some constant.
Feedback. Edits required on that. Okay, when you come, 20, the Manahira Care, community hub. This is one of the ones that was interesting, out of reserves that has the no. Just about, I think, of a pretty good discussion on the meeting of December. Any edit required? No, okay. The next one is supercars. Well done, labour secretary, go through.
I've got a question on that. Only because reading the report on page 5, it talks about what we did in December, and then at this meeting, council agreed the third option in each item, blah, blah, and said 400,000. So I assume that paragraph relates to the supercards funding. It doesn't say that, but
Yes, it does.
Yes, sir.
on page 5 of the report we're considering,
But what number?
No, in
in the written bit.
Sorry, that is my bad.
After number 9.
Yes. Yes, that definitely was referring.
And it doesn't say supercars, does it? I looked hard and thought, I think that's what it's meant to be, but
Sorry, I suppose you look at yes, so well done. So yes, the next item, so this is a change from the 18th of December council meeting. At that stage, we passed a resolution and the third option is what we've actually now put up to option B, which was going to be motions breaking across the district. We looked, we get funding hard and high and low really to try and bring the overall rates impact down. And this is one that we found where there is some tourism reserves that were built up during the COVID time. And we think the financially prudent thing for council to have as a third option is that you fund it out of your tourism reserves, and again, that would have a nil impact on your ratepayer. So that is something that we do need to express agreement if you think that's a good idea to change what we had on the 18th of December.
So you're saying now that there's money that $250,000 been sitting in the surplus account in the tourism corner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We didn't know it was there till we went looking.
the reserves accounts are something that we're unpacking. And we knew there was some tourism reserves. We just had to follow the money.
Raising for, or are they government funded, no better off, low risk funded?
It's already great, or something speaking from previous years.
Yeah.
We had the additional support.
Yeah. Yeah, so we
Shouldn't have that come out before we have to go looking now?
Sure. Critically, and definitely we need to get on the program where we were falling into reserves, that we come to you and say, hey, we've got reserves of economic development of blah, that wants to do this project, let's not wait for it in the LTP, let's pay for it out of the money that we're taking from our community. So actually, two taking points through, we should have actually had that before now, as part of the LTP saying, hey, we need a program to pull down the reserves rather than do the rate.
So that's been levied for the tourism part of that component of the council.
Yeah.
So we weren't sure we're into that.
Well.
Have you got to put it this way, we're getting more reserves we can find.
That's the bit that's got me rather confused, is how we could have $400,000 sitting in a reserves and we haven't seen it through the financial reports. I don't get that.
And it was a different accounts, and we've been following the money to figure out where it should all lie, and then run things at profit. That's what my understanding. Yeah.
There's a project we're undertaking to do that with all of our reserves, so there would be potentially other reserves that have been merged into other activities, other reserves, etc. Shouldn't have been done, so we're working to find those and got a clear.
So can we, because we used to get a report on our different reserves of different accounts. This obviously wasn't included in it, so it was sitting somewhere else, but I think with what you're saying, the project on, we'll get a report to tell us, here goes the actual state of our reserves. That'll be very useful, and the sooner the better, I suspect.
I don't want to get snarky and angry, but 400,000 in the tourism reserve allow every other community to keep halls and recreational facilities. Because they're only saving 84,000, 0.5% of the rate, but we've had 0.5% of the rates, nearly 3/4% of the rates sitting in reserve we don't know we've got. Anyway, now, I'll be positive in getting reserves.
That on the windowsill with reserves.
It was in the accounts, it just wasn't let you take as far as the reserves. Yeah.
So effectively, going back to the Highlands Motor Park, it's going to stay in the consultation document, even though we've got a budget line for it if we choose.
Yes, and again, it was a big grey area on when you consult and you don't. This one, I think, because it is, a decent amount of money and it is an investment in something like supercars, I do personally think this is worth you having a conversation with the community to see in these financial times, does our community want us to be spending money on stuff like this or other things? So, but again, this is one that's probably a bit grey. There's definitely within the significant engagement clear cases that you've got a new rate, all that kind of stuff that you must consult on the continuum. This is one that you might go, actually, we don't think it quite reaches the threshold. We're just going to talk to the community rather than consult with them. We have currently got it in consult. So that is something that you can change your mind on. The council have a view,
That's absolutely where it should be. Any other view would be absolutely arrogant and wrong.
But in consultation.
Then doing what we're supposed to do would be just so wrong.
We will be asking our community about it, so I think it needs to stay there.
But does it reflect, if we've now got the money, it doesn't have an effect on rates, is that going to reflect in here? Because it's said down to say that the mean average of the one-off will be 4.48% of rate, but effectively we don't need to have that in the consultation document.
But there is an opportunity cost, there's a reserve fund that could be used for other. So that's a choice that's been made to be which one can.
Yeah, and if we refuse that event come to Cromwell because we don't want to pay for it, there'll be uproar in that. But we're the ones that have stopped that coming here and we've upped X, Y and Z. That was the community board discussion with it. You've got to understand whether or not council should be the ones or whether that come in another way, but we shouldn't be the ones to say no to it necessarily. That's what we've been trying to get at with the consultation.
But the argument to that is we're actually effectively, if the tourism guys came to us a year ago and said, hey, look, we've got an idea coming down the pipeline, we've got reserves here, we'll put it in our long-term budget, maybe we'll put 100,000 or 50,000 in the consultation document because it's allowing us to see into the future. We're not using, it looks like I want to buy a new Hilux, a part of my business, a sheep buyer, and part of my business, a cattle buyer. Same thing. We don't have to take the whole 250. Therefore, you can say it's going to have minimal impact on rate, 10%, 0.10%, because you've got capital.
Or do a district funding round and say we've got a pot of money, what's happening? And then we can look at several things in the sale of money for the money.
Until I didn't know we had a pot of money. That's the difference. We're asking that we're putting shock and awe. This is the part that's really starting to really frustrate. We're putting shock and awe into the community about big rate rises. We're having discussion about depreciated water that we're going to pass off and go away. And then we're finding that pockets of money and go into community consultation that we're going to clean this out and shut your roads off, do this, and level of service is going to stay the same, but it's not.
Well, you've given yourself your own answer. What are we doing? It's not as if we're not trying to litigate the merits of giving islands and supercars money. We're just presenting a consultation document. I mean, if you ask my personal opinion, there's no merit at all, because when we're talking about a 23% rates increase, even if we're going to mitigate that, to give money to do successful businesses to bring an established profitable activity to this area. It's not as if we'll really seed money out for something that we want to establish and get going. It hasn't got a long-standing track record. We don't go to other businesses and say, we'll give you money just because you ask for it.
Oh, I agree with what you're saying. Zach, just notice now you're going into consultation on this topic. You possibly don't need to if you want to put it as a part of the tourism strategy or that came forward. Really work to balance it with money. That's all I'm getting.
And if we'd bought it 6 months ago, 12 months ago, that may well have been the decision that we made. But now it's in, we've told the community they'll get their say. I think this is where it needs to stay.
Yeah, but it comes very late in the process, this comes in early December.
Yeah.
For like I think early December. And so I think at that time, the elected members have really had a time to really thrash it out, like you had some of these other topics in the consultation document.
And I think even without a rating impact, it's still, I think, good for the community to decide, because we could just shut it down and go, no, we don't think it's a great idea, but we should let the community decide.
I think the key thing was, I supported this simply on the basis that we need to understand what our community think about this sort of thing.
Yeah.
There could be more to come as this grows and more things come about. This is new territory for us. And the community need to be part of that and tell us what they think. You know, and Nigel's view might be 100% correct. Only difference is I'm prepared to hear what other people have got to say first before I finally commit.
Yeah, and I'm cautious on this as well, but I think we don't want to shut down opportunities just because we decide to shut down opportunities without giving our community a chance if they want this opportunity.
I totally agree with that.
Manu Toto too? Manu Toto too? That's what's up next June.
So I take it from that, you really comfort in the, situations that we're happy to go with the results rather than the direct breakdown. Okay. Yes, page 24. Any comments there on this item? This is the one.
No, there's been discussion around whether there should be council assets put into education systems balance sheet. That was yesterday's meeting, discussions whether we shift the turf to the stadium and whether we shift the swimming pool to the stadium. So really, it's got to go out to people and have their say because it's really complex as far as the community is concerned. I can totally understand the direction of the school and the people and brand new school, brand new facilities, brand new things. Our community have to travel a long way for it. They're just saying they want to be fairly treated, and our community was the chairman was a big driver in this. So let them have their say. So yeah, it's.
Last one, page 26 now, page 28, there's the search of the comments on this one. So yeah, communities for the class and match. So flipping over, the next page is on now and 28. There under legislation, the set in place that we require, it's not something that we are also consulting on. So the development, and that should say development and financial contributions process, we'll make that edit there. Fees and charges, we really just want to draw attention, so that doesn't get lost amongst everything. Revenue and financing policy, and the significance of engagement policy. So the policies listed are required, and require what is called separate consultations. But what we can do is run them alongside. So just within our platform, we will have them separated, and the opportunity for the public, to only give us feedback on the revenue and financing policies if that's over. I think that'd be quite unusual in the grand scheme of things, but that's a technical thing that you really need to do, and that has been changes. And I wonder, in light of the conversation with Common, we might just beef up that development financial contributions policy because there are some significant changes there that we'll write about, and we put those in the page here as well.
I just think that those 4 particular items on that page, they look like they're add-ons and there's not much to see here, but they're very significant. And somehow I think we need to make sure that people don't miss it. The developer should get it, but actually, I think, you know, the bulk of people will get the first 8 items, but I think that this for them could be significant as well, particularly in the revenue and financing policy for the average rate pay. The development community will pick up on the development and financial contributions one, but I think we really want to try and get some feedback on the likes of the fees and charges and how we significant engagement. Unfortunately, it's not easy to understand. It's complex, but I actually, you know, value the views on some of those things more so than I would about whether we should have a turf at Dunstan Hospital.
It's the way it's presented, it's actually like a thought.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe we make that number 9 and it has a number 9 and a picture of development or whatever to highlight, hey, wait, you haven't finished yet.
But like
this.
But wait.
Yeah. Well, I think even for this significant engagement, for the volumetric charging and stuff, that they are significant issues that are going to have an impact.
Yeah.
We probably should just flesh it out.
Some council getting into the document.
Don't put them off. You put them engagement.
Right, now, but really the last bit here is, again, legally required really important parts. We have the financial strategy and strategy. These are summaries of those strategies that we've had in full, as part of the little bit of reading that we've seen on Friday. So I wonder if we take the financial strategy as a whole, so not only questions for Paul in the next 2 pages, starting at page 29, but there's stuff that you pick up in the strategy itself, and the attachments that you want to question. So open it up for.
The problem will be by the time people get here, they want to switch off. They read words like financial strategy and they go, I don't understand what that is. Eh? Well, yeah, that's, I think the reality is a lot of, I don't know how you engage people to get that, but I suspect most people will switch off. Unless they're real nerds.
I'm just saying, I put up there, all one working for everybody turns on.
So,
You're right.
yes. I take no comfort in being right, but.
Now, Paul, I just have a question that came up yesterday and it's on page 31, and I think it is now a bit clearer. It's that pie chart.
Yeah.
Is that principally because of the way we've treated the depreciation, that the water charge here doesn't look but could you explain that?
So the title of the chart should be, it's a breakdown of the rates increase. So I think that we originally, it was not that in the original document, it's now changed it to reflect that. But effectively it is on your $7 million increase in rates, which activities are contributing most. And the reason water doesn't is because water is only dealing with the fixed charge, which would have gone down under the under the volumetric charge increase. If you were looking at a complete picture for total revenue, I guess, there would be an increase for volumetric charging that would sit in the water space. But we don't measure it in terms of that, in terms of rates. Does that make sense? I don't know. So you're missing $1.80 per year.
It makes sense, but it doesn't seem right with other stuff that we get told to do by audit and to actually treat that volumetric charge as a rate.
Yeah.
I thought that, and some girls at 30%, it was part of that equation.
No, it's not that. But what we can do is have a look at how we can incorporate the volumetric charging. Because it's just the overall amount. We're not looking at individual problems. So we'll see how we can put.
We must have a budget for what our water costs will be.
We'll work out how we can put that in and then reflect that.
Increase. So more simple here, when people lined out yesterday at the meeting saying a lot of your rates charged are going to come down with what our value of water is in the next 3 or 4 years. Because we actually got all the stuff we've been talking about, it now looks like it's insignificant for water on just because of the volumetric charging.
Yeah.
But community facilities looks like it's a massive problem, but actually the water is the massive problem.
Yeah, well,
I'm quite saying, when that old lady that was sitting there, 38 old people were sitting there yesterday, you go look at this and go, that guy's lying. It's what is the big issue with us, not this and this.
I think the solution to that is let's put all of the revenue requirements for water, so that will be rates and volumetric charging, and see what that increase looks like. I think it will be completely different to what.
It just feels like that paragraph is not representative of what it was and where they lie.
Well, it's not designed to be your costs.
Well, our
costs
yeah.
are on the
it.
where does your rate dollars go?
Yeah.
Line.
Yeah.
This is only just showing you.
The increase.
Yeah.
Can we put in the increases? I know it says rates increase in year 1, but are we going to put, where have the 2025-26 increases come from, or?
Yeah, we can change that. I mean, that's easy to do. Yeah. So we just change the beginning. Yeah.
Because it's just the year 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I did notice that we'll have to change the first page of the financial strategy because it was concentrating right at the moment.
Yeah.
We need to adjust that because it's we can sort of talk about water, but we won't refer to anything as concentration management. You will note the growth adjusted rates increases on page 32. That reduction there in year 3, that will depend on the outcome of our friends across Waitaki to see where they get to with Audit New Zealand and the Audit in general, because that assumes that 3 waters is gone. That's why the rates drop so significantly.
So how come they go up so significantly after that?
Yeah, I think that's maybe not that. It's not that they're gonna go up again. It makes it look like they drop by 30% and then go up again by 30%,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the next year they're actually only going up by 3%.
From the 30% reduction.
30% reduction, so,
The graph.
yeah.
Yes, I'm a very simple person, but you look at that, the water goes away.
Yeah.
It comes back on, and then you go to here, water, where's your $100 water, spent $16 to spend on it in the graph there. And when it goes away, $16 is still spent over here, look on the post office, you go down and get a rate. Yeah, but you can't do that, I understand that. But the $16.35 there doesn't correlate to the graph back here, that 7% as a percentage. It's very small.
Well, whilst dealing with the revenue side, because I see that's the rates component, and I think we should fix that by throwing the volumetric income on top of that. This is the cost of it.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get those graphs, so that they say the same thing.
And you might need to put where do your rates go? That's for FY 26 and.
Yeah.
Year one, so.
I'm not a designer, I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I just think because the graph above is about 10 years out.
Yeah, if it was my graphs, I'll just have lines everywhere.
No colour, yeah, black and white.
That's
Right.
it.
And so, depending on the water state, we may be required to redo the funding system. So we're hoping not, that would be a bit of fun, so that's back to the second efforts. Right, page 34, infrastructure, strategy.
Can we go back to 33?
Oh, sorry.
Just the rates example based on water meter charges are $2.40, so I don't quite understand what that means. Does that mean certain volume of water has been included in those rates numbers? Or is it just the UAC that's in those rates numbers based on a $2.40 volumetric charge?
I believe it is the UAC. I will have to check that.
Yeah, I just wondered that might be unhelpful. It might be better to say it includes uniform annual charge, not volumetric charge or something like that.
Unless I'm missing something, here, there's got 18 to 20% rate rise for rural New Zealand. And of that, there's a third of the increase in the value of the ratepayer on the graph before is in water. Rural large scale, Tegia, Oaktown, Mini, Toto, Oxford, Cromwell are not connected to water.
No, but you've got.
So your land value stayed the same or gone down.
Yeah, you've got districtisation, which is occurred, and that, those numbers reflect that. You've also got, you're bringing in the Ranfurly pool, Roxburgh pool. We've got too many R's there. You're bringing in the Roxburgh pool that was not accounted for, which is now going to be spread across the district. And depending whether it's going to be capital value as it was in the past, board-based, or a mix of capital, but you haven't decided that yet. So there will be some of the reasons why the rural sector has a higher increase than the towns. And if you look at, there's some there in the towns who've got 6%. That's because they're connected to the water schedule and they're getting $304 remission effectively on their rates, which reflects why they're coming down. So that kind of counters their reduction there, counters what they would be paying for things like the Roxburgh pool and the lights and the turfs and all of those things that we've got in there will impact. Will be.
Yes, why is the percentage going bigger than the rest?
Well,
Because
same way, if it's all
commercial
these
property.
things here, where the biggest ones are applicable to everyone, whereas last time around, when it was the residential units that got hit, it was the water that was making the impact, but this time around, it's not the water making the impact, it's these things.
The other thing you've got to remember is these are samples, right? There will be some people who may be better off in the rural space than that particular property. And there may be some people who are worse, depending on what their capital value is and what their land value is. So this is not necessarily, generally it's indicative. So you may say that the rural space is going up upwards of 20% but some will be not going up by that much, and others will be going up by that much, and so on. But it is a shift, it definitely is a shift from urban.
It's a big shift to really, when the shift is actually, and I understand what Tammy's saying, but when you look at the shift, it's actually in the water component. And road, understand, well, so it comes in through road, if we've got direct, it's road, a lot of it, and infrastructure or stuff like that, you get it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the water is where the shift is.
And have I got a deal for you? That is why in the revenue financing policy, I propose that you, and I mentioned this last year, uncoupling the UAGC from paying for specific things to being treated as a general rate. So if you've got particular, like a higher than you'd expect increase in the rural space, you can increase the UAGC that pays for all of the general rate stuff, which will bring their variable rate down and increase the urban rate higher. So you now have some tools, if you accept the revenue financing policy as it's proposed, you have some tools to, this is all about either making a more progressive tax system or a more regressive tax system. So you have the ability now to tweak it so that you can push rates incidence into areas that may be like the urban areas. They may be getting an average of 6%. If you change the UAGC and raise that by say $50, I don't know what that would be, that might bring them up to 10% and it might bring the rurals down to 15%. So if you accept that in the revenue financing policy, you now have that ability to smooth the rates out, and you will be able to do a similar thing next year when we get our valuations come through, which will impact everybody differently, but you will see a swing in rates based on valuations. So there are now tools if the revenue policy goes through to change and smooth those things out.
Therefore, we know enter it back in if I ever do get the rural community and tell them we're going to get a 20% rate rise, they go, where is it? And then they go, well, we took over the rocks before. And they go, we got rid of 10 of our halls, we shut down the road, we got the bridges, and we're getting a 20% rate rise. How do I answer it? That's all I want, huh?
Yeah, the answer would be, if you were looking at that, I can find it, no, that's there.
Phil Tracy will get the same.
Property facilities gone up by 2.78 million, that is now district funded. So things like the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth Hall running, the operation running of it, there's $500,000 in there to employ people to get that ready for when it's complete so that it's ready to go. So that's, you can then turn around and say that's where your increases are. Road, it's up 1.36 million. And
I'll get.
So I don't think that there's not an answer for the rural space in terms of, I gave some examples of what we've consulted on. But there are other things that have happened in the district and you've just got to look at the property and community facilities. That's just under half of the increase. Compared to the, just did the quick calculation, 26% of the increase relates to infrastructure costs.
But I guess the hard thing, because each of those costs start figuring out, that commercial property is getting -2% for commercial property and rental.
And again,
and all you pay a facility for those facilities the same as everyone else.
What I'm saying to you is the rating system you've currently got set up with the fixed charges and the variable charges you've currently got, that's the result. Now, you need a little bit of flexibility, and that's why I've tried to design that into the revenue financing policy to you never want to give someone a negative rates increase. So there could be a case for how can we change the rates model so that these commercial people don't get a negative increase, they get a positive increase. And what is that impact going to have on everybody else? Now, that's the thing that we're building the model to play around with that, so we can demonstrate those changes to you and we can see the movement on each of those sample properties, if Ray, say we reduce the UAGC or we increase it, or we change the community facilities rate from 100% fixed to a 50-50, because you remember we presented that pre-Christmas there with the two examples, you could kind of see the movement.
Yeah, I guess if you're a commercial business operator in Central Otago, where your best friend.
Well, it depends, and that's the real difficulty that we've faced over the last few years, is these massive swings and roundabouts, where you've got people going up by 30% and down by 27%, and up by 15, down by 30. We're supposed to be trying to smooth those, but at the moment, with the rating system that we have, it's incredibly difficult to smooth it out.
It's been all out doing it, we've only.
Yeah,
But in a commercial business operation, if we want to talk about economic development, this is fantastic for the commercial industry. I mean, we put our rates up, put our fees up just last year to cover expenses and costs, but our rates went down. And interest rates, they're like, to me, in a lot of ways, is also something which would go to be.
I think you might find that if you average out, the rural side with the urban side from the year going forward, and the year we've just had, they will be a lot closer aligned across 2 years.
Or, is it also that, the depreciation, so the reason, like the towns haven't gone up as much is because we've only funded the 50%. So our rate increase in urban would have been higher if we hadn't have had that deduction, which we would have been closer to rural, but last year rural didn't get that massive price increase in free waters that we got. So this time we're getting a reduction.
And as I said, with the revenue financing policy, that's your tool to try and smooth that. So if you've got, given the history, I understand that we had significant increases in the urban area, and we had an 18% average, but some of the urban areas went up close to 30%. Now, if you had that in place, you could have potentially mitigated some of that 30% by manipulating the fixed charge versus the variable charge component of various rates. It's not just the general rate, but it would be various rates. And you could have done that potentially within the ward system that you had. So you could have had those things set up so that you could have moved the Cromwell fixed charge up by Dawn and Frame, say the Vincent fixed charge, and get the same effect across those two wards. So what I'm saying is that we've now, if you're happy to go out to consultation with that, we've now got the ability to, and this happens closer to the time when the CE's out for consultation, and at the end of that, you then can choose how you want to strike your rates. And that's where we come in with the model and say, okay, well, this is, if you do this, this is the impact. We'll be able to show you the 20 or so fixed, rates examples, the movement by changing that factor compared to that factor. And then you then get to a point where you're more comfortable than having a 23% rate rise here and a -2 rate decrease, or a 2% decrease here. So I think that we're modelling based on what we know right now with the policy that we have. You will have the opportunity, if you're happy with what we've done, to have a play with that and smooth those changes out a little bit more.
Yeah, just because while I've been talking about the revenue and financing policy, it occurred to me that for people looking at that, you made changes. Where can they see what the change that's been made is? And I'm just wondering whether we shouldn't have a document set that also shows the marked up changes, because if you start cold on what the revenue and financing policy, even I don't know what's changed.
No, what we've done is I have put together a paragraph of what's like my paragraph. It's all these other changes that we're proposing. So and this reflects the district quotation.
Yes,
and all of that. So that's been done. It just hasn't been circulated yet. So that will go into both the documents.
So at the level of what's a land value rate, what's a capital value rate, what's a UAC, what's a targeted rate, what document does that come out of? Because it's not in the revenue and financing policy, is it?
Well, it's a.
It's when we strike the rates, isn't it?
No, you In terms of, you have a system of rating where you rate land value for general rate, you rate capital value for other rates.
Yeah.
So that.
Differentials and all that sort of stuff.
So
That's
that
not
should,
changed.
that should be in the revenue and financing policy if there's a change. You moving from land value to capital value, you really need to consult on that.
So we're not proposing any changes to how we've rated for stuff in the past. We're going to do it the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but I just was trying to get my head around.
Yeah.
And maybe that's probably an important thing to say. There is no change in the, A, the differentials, B, the targeted rates and whether, how we fund the planning and environment rate.
Yeah.
And what's uniform annual charge, what's not, other than obviously the amounts not changed.
Well, the uniform annual charge, you can decide, right, because with the districtisation, you had a uniform annual charge in some spaces and you had a uniform annual charge and a variable rate.
Yeah.
So we kind of haven't changed that.
No, that's.
But by throwing it all into the district, a community facilities rate, or what we're calling that.
Yeah.
Because it's a new rate, you do have the opportunity to turn around and resolve at the end of the process to say, well, we want a fixed portion, then you want a variable portion.
And that'll change those examples, they won't.
It will, absolutely, yeah.
At the moment, you haven't done any change to that, kept the same, and
No, this is built on what we know.
I can't imagine us changing that if we're not consulting.
Look, I think,
Be unwise, wouldn't it?
I think if you're going to be changing your rating system, that's a significant amount of work.
Thank you.
It's got to be a deliberate process, not a,
Not
we'll
a-
do it for
not-
LGP.
Yeah, not just so no one knows we've done it until they get the bill.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Saskia, is there anything you want to highlight from the infrastructure sphere that I'm interested?
What and the future of place in my view is the years it's looking really, really good. During the economic time, just keep on commenting so that information in the consultation documents are really looking good. In terms of the background document, there's a bit of, you've looked at it, there is a bit of information in here that will look here. It's just the intent of the original is quite rich of information that I'm trying to.
It's never.
No, in fact.
It's always going to be.
But we have included waters in the infrastructure strategy for the duration, which again, that document would be handed over to the entity to base their knowledge on.
And then we say it cost you, sleep over the.
Never do.
It's quite long, so.
I'm pleased that at least the financial strategy is before the infrastructure one.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect, right.
Then there was a whole raft of policies that were sent out. Some of them, there's been a very little change through that we have seen before. Quite descriptive, but it's obviously the infrastructure strategy and financial strategy we talked about. Development and financial contributions policy, conversation earlier. Fees and charges, that's pretty straightforward. That's something you have seen earlier. I think you say we picked up numbers that have been transferred, so we'll put those around. Revenue and financing policy we just covered. The rates for emission and finance policy, we've had a conversation about that last in the workshop. So told through your feedback and you gave us direction to make some changes there. So you see that reflected there. Liability management policy, we made no edits to from what we saw, gosh, about a week ago. When we did bring that up to council, we had a hand tied away with the detail of the 3 quarters, so we made edits at that time, we just carried that through. Investment policies, we need to comment on that.
only the adjustments that we made, we asked council in the last year to make it was withdrawing some stuff around the 3 waters. We might have already put in there, but there was a 7.5.1, I think it was, that the council had already said that we can pull out. So we pulled those out. They were stuff that we wasn't significant, didn't even impact me. But I can't quite remember the clause it was, but it was in relation to the council discussion.
And then community outcomes for that, that's pretty straightforward. That was a paper last year, so we'll go to that. And then, of course, you've got the accounts. So I know it was hundreds and hundreds of pages of reading. We are picking up edits, it's very similar strategy. You know, there are tutorial stuff that we pick up typos and the like. But anything of concern at this stage in any of those documents? Yes, I was going to say that we have, this on that final page, instead of try posting your names in your emails, if I'm missing it, I'm gonna write it. So essentially, we're seeking your approval, under the watchful guidance of the CUMA to make those changes, and to progress this through.
And it will be coming back, we will see it again before it goes to the.
Phone number out if we get print.
With the community meetings, are those taking the dates and times confirmed, or are those dates and times? I know location, though.
So, yes, those names.
So we can have that.
So, and we will see that, there's actually two tables, we've got community meetings and we've got proposed community drop-in. So we're hoping to have meetings in the first subsection of ad hoc session, really go with the drop-ins, the people who want to come around, around. So we've got some tables that we're tightening in. At the moment, we're the complementary sort of sorry, complementary much number of things. Roxburgh, we are considering to Miller Station on Coburn and the West Station. So, yes, we've got those dates involved.
Great, on that. But who just moved recommendations A through to E? Somebody would like to second those?
I
Thank
can.
you, Neil. Bless you. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
One day you have
Carried.
council standing day.
Thank you very much, Sam. I know it's been a huge amount of work and there's still more to come, so lucky that you can get 4 by 3 hours sleep, isn't it? No, that is very much appreciated.
They decided that was worth 20 minutes, right?
Oh, no, yeah, I was way off.
And I know that the community can't wait to read the 6 pages.
Oh, look, I've only got 2 hours off.
You were only up a little bit, yeah. Right, moving through to governance report,
Even an hour out. And as it turns out, that's Stuart's 2, it's now 3.
page 250. Status reports from Wayne, including the Otago Museum report. Wayne, is there anything you wanted to highlight in there?
I don't think so. It's quite a few good sort of things.
It's quite a few, it goes for a while now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully I'm getting rid of a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 38 pages. Or something like that.
Any questions on any of those items contained within the status report? Comments?
I've got a question about the report on the Alexandra Business and Strategy Plan on page 261, I think. It also proposed the Alexandra Airport Master Plan. The business and financial strategy be developed to support the implementation of the airport master plan. It seems to be a long time in the gestation.
Yeah, you're quite right, it is like an elephant. But we, on stream, it's planned for March, to bring the update back to you.
It's going to be March because it just seems to be moving away.
Well, we will have to put that plan through the Vincent Community Board first of all as well. So ideally we want to get that up to them in the February schedules. But at the moment it is planned for March, but in fact, if there's any deviation from that, then leave it let us know in due course.
Any other questions?
Well, maybe just, I mean, the Alexandra Airport had a period of growth and boom and it's all go, go, go. And you appointed an outside board of experts. And then it seems to disappear down a rabbit hole.
Well, I think that was a big part of, across COVID, all those people that were waiting disappeared. Yeah.
All right.
Still plenty happening up there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I can go and take some photos and send them to you. They can keep them.
Thank you.
Yeah, run them. Right. Page 250, someone happy to move that report be received? Thank you, Sally. Second, thank you, Nigel. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. On to 3:30. We have got the community board and committee minutes. Anybody got any questions or comments on those? No, you happy to those they approved, received? No, Phil, thank you, seconded Sarah. All those in favour? No, against, carried. Date of the next meeting. Wow, that's where up to already. Let's go to the page, because February.
26th of Feb.
It should be on there. So much. And just point out when Sarah writes the date on the.
No,
So you know. Yeah. Wonderful, and now we move to resolution to exclude the public for the reasons outlined. I'm happy to move that we do that. Tracy's happy to second. Those in favour, against, carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, team. Great having you here. Probably a bit easier than trying to hear online and then you get to hang out for the day.